Well, today's projects are continuing to clean the boat. My friend Dave is going to go out the forward deck and clean that, and then this has been bothering me, this rub rail damage, so I'm going to be spending some time cleaning this up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get up there and assess the situation, find out why those screw heads are all broken off. I have a feeling what I'm going to find is that was the beginning of an attempt of repair, that they part of this rail popped off, probably because it hit a piling, and then they were trying to fix it, and every time they tried to loosen up a screw, the head broke off because the stainless steel screws that hold the piece on are screwed into aluminum, and there's probably some galvanic corrosion, some dissimilar metals action, and the stainless steel screw corroded and welded itself right into the aluminum rub rail. So I'm going to get up there and look at that, see what I've got, and then once I evaluate it, I'll determine whether I'm drilling out screws or grinding out screws or what I'm doing. So I'll bring you back into the video here in a few more minutes once I get the ladder set up and start getting up there to evaluate. Here it is, a beautiful Saturday at the marina, and boats of all types are going out and coming back in. So for this part of this repair on the rub rail cap, I'm going to concentrate first on the back section, the little section. You can see right there. I'm going to straighten that out. I've already removed a couple of the, well, two screws. I've removed one screw and I've loosened up another screw. Now I'm going to get up in there and I'm going to use wedges, hammer, vice grips, pliers, whatever I can to straighten that out as best I can. And when I reattach it, instead of it being bent out about an inch from the rub rail mount, it should be close to flush. So that's my first project, and it's just going to take a lot of beating, twisting, convincing, which I won't be able to videotape because I'll be blocking the camera with my body. So I'll show you the result when I'm done. Alright, so I pulled a screw out of that rail that I'm working on. Next, I can find out whether I've got a number 8 in there, a number 10, or a number 12. The screw that I removed is bent, and it's a flathead number 8 countersunk screw. That's not typically what would be in there. What would normally be in there, it looks like it's a 3/4 of an inch. I wasn't sure what was in there, so when I stopped at the hardware store, I bought number 8s, number 10s, and number 12s. But I bought an oval head screw, which is what should be in this hardware. Now, those sometimes are difficult to find. I actually found these at Home Depot. They had them in 10s, and they had them in 8s, and they had them in 6s, oval heads, but they didn't have them in 12s, so I'm glad that these aren't 12s that are attaching it. So this is a flathead screw, and this is an oval head screw, and it's just more dressy. So I'm going to make my repairs, and these are 1 inch, and 1 inch has plenty of clearance and into the rub rail mount. So I'm going to replace the screw that I removed, which is bent, and the screw that I loosened just so I could get access to the rail to repair it. I'll replace both of those flathead screws with these oval head screws. So after getting the back piece, the rub rail cap that goes aft, straightened out using hammers and vice grips and blocks of wood. It's attached now. I will have to pull it back off and put 4200 sealant on each screw, and I will have to get the adhesive remover and clean off all the goop from the tape that was temporarily holding it. But now I've moved down to the front, part of the rail. And I went back about 6 screws, moved the screws, and then carefully been straightening that out. Again, using blocks of wood, screws, shims placed behind it to use the shims to help straighten out the steel. I'm down now to, again, the end is ugly with adhesive because somebody just put tape on the hull to hold it in place. And now I got the last screw, the last hole there, and the screw is broken off in the hole. So now I will get a Dremel tool and I will carefully grind out the screw, making sure not to grind beyond the screw so that I can put a new screw in there and they'll still have something to bite into. And that aluminum rub rail cap is full of hardwood, and it is indeed hard. So the next thing will be for me to clean out that hole so I can continue to put this rub rail back in its place. For this task with my Dremel tool, I've chosen this Dremel 9903 tungsten carbide cutter. I don't know if it's too big. I don't know if it'll get in there and clean that screw out. I guess I'll try it and see what happens. So the goal here was not perfection. The goal here was to secure this rail, which was hanging in the breeze, had been taped on. The tape was attached to the rub rail cap. There's adhesive all over the boat. There's adhesive on the rub rail. That is still there. But the threat that the rub rail cap is going to get snagged and break or cause further damage to the boat or further damage to the cap, that is now eliminated. That last screw that had broken off, probably when the boat, looking like it hit the damage was probably caused when the boat hit up against the dock and hit the bullard, the piling of the dock, and popped that cap loose, and then it just went downhill from there. So the repair has been made. It's good enough for government work. At some point in time I may replace that entire cap. There's other damage where it's hit the dock before. You see that's crushed there, and get around to the stern, you'll see there's several places there where it's been hit. The goal was to secure it. Now I got really lucky when I was grinding that screw off that was filling the hole. I only got down about 3/16 of an inch of carefully grinding the shaft of the screw when I noticed that the screw I was trying to move was moving. So the vibration from the Dremel tool backed that screw shaft right out of the hole. And I was able to, once it started moving, I was able to get in there with a couple of small jeweler screwdrivers and carefully work that out. So the hole was not made too large. I was able to turn right around, put a new screw right back in that same hole, and go on our way. So this project took about an hour and a half, and part of the reason it took an hour and a half is because I bought 1-inch screws anticipating that rub rail was full of wood and that I'd easily have 1 inch, but it's not. It's actually a very strong extruded piece of aluminum with another extruded piece of aluminum inside it, and just about a ½ inch of wood. And so the 1-inch long screws I bought were about 1/4 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch too long. So I spent more than half the project time custom cutting my 1-inch screws down to fit in each one of those holes to get the maximum amount of bite without bottoming out. So I probably made 15 cuts to 8 screws to get them to all fit and get the maximum bite. So the project took twice as long as it should have, but I'm very pleased with the result, and I'll get some goo off, adhesive remover, and clean off the hull and clean up this whole area of the hull again. And that's one of the 15 projects I had on my short list that has now been accomplished. So I feel pretty good about this little 2-hour project. I wanted to show you the tools that I use for this project. This is a Dremel tool, multi-pro tool. It has a quick disconnect cutting disc on it. That's about 75% worn. They start off almost 1.5 inches in diameter. That's just a standard metal cutoff tool. Here are some of the screws that started off 1 inch that I cut to different sizes. I have some extras, so I will be putting those in my boat hardware box organizer. So this whole project was done with a Phillips screwdriver, a pair of vice grips. That block of wood is what I used as my hammer, so it wouldn't dent up, ding, scratch the stainless steel. That was my hammer. And the channel locks are vice-like grips. A Phillips screwdriver, and then those are the 3 jeweler screwdrivers I used to help work that little screw tip out of the wood. And that's the total tools it took to make this repair. If you're going to be working on anything, you really ought to get yourself a Dremel tool and as many different fittings and attachments as you possibly can. It's amazing what you can do with that tool and with those attachments.